Welcome to How I Built My Fundraising Consultancy, the stories behind the people driving results in the nonprofit sector.
It's not about how much knowledge I have about the content of whatever it is the organization's about, Morris Animal Foundation, or name an organization. What matters is, am I listening to donors? Am I asking good questions? Am I gaining a sense of the way in which the donor wants to make a difference in the world through their philanthropy? What is the story that the donor wants to live and express through their giving? And I was just looking for alignment between a donor and an organization. And once I realized that all I had to do was listen and then keep listening and keep asking questions and then ask the donor what they wanted to do about it, I got very quickly over the difference between college athletics and animal health.
Scott Koskoski is a senior performance mentor at BrightDot. BrightDot focuses on coaching fundraisers to reach their goals. Scott got into fundraising because of his experience getting a scholarship and meeting the donor who enabled him to go to college, and he shares from this unique perspective as a fundraiser directly impacted by a donor. A quick announcement. As a listener of the podcast, we are making the Engagement Fundraising audiobook available to you free of charge. Just go to imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer. As a thank you for listening, we wanted to give everyone free access to Greg's Engagement Fundraising audiobook that you can get on Audible or Apple Books for $15. Once again, just visit imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer. That's imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer. Thanks for listening to the podcast, and we hope you enjoy Greg's book. Now, on to the episode. Welcome to the podcast, Scott.
Hey, thanks so much, Tim. Appreciate being here this morning.
Can you first introduce yourself and how you got started in fundraising?
I am a Western Pennsylvanian, born and raised. Grew up in a family that was very modest, very humble in terms of socioeconomic status. And it was made clear to me when I was a young teenager that if I wanted to access college and begin the path to a life that might have been different than my relatives and maybe my own parents, that I needed to be pretty entrepreneurial about how I was going to do it. And I appreciate the clarity that my parents gave me at a younger age as to the responsibility I was going to have for my journey. I worked very, very hard to earn a scholarship in college. I was very fascinated at the fact that other people who I did not know, people who had come through the institution prior to me, were making my experience possible through scholarship support and paying it forward. That was an interesting phenomenon to me. And I had the opportunity to meet the donor who had endowed my scholarship. It was that connection my sophomore year as an undergraduate that turned me into one of those rare birds, Tim, I guess you could say, that proactively chose a fundraising career. From my experience as an undergraduate, getting to meet the donor who provided my scholarship. And again, the concept to me is just wild that, wait a minute, someone who didn't know me from Adam would have years ago made a decision to write a check so that someone like me could pursue this education and access a different life. You took a chance on me. What can I do to pay that forward? What can I do to make it possible for kids like me who are growing up in America struggling and thinking about creating new possibilities for themselves? And I decided that rather than be a wealthy philanthropist, I could go to work developing relationships with them. That spurned a 14-year career in university and college fundraising, then provided an opportunity to transition to the nonprofit space. And from that, the inspiration to co-found a boutique coaching firm, and now part of my second firm, in BrightDot.
And is there something in particular about the athletics department within universities that attracted you?
Student athletes are some of the best and brightest assets that an educational institution has. They are coachable. They are hardworking men and women. They understand commitment. They are learning resilience and adaptability. They are ambassadors for the brand of the college and university. Back when I worked, the NCAA regulations were different than they are today in terms of compensating student athletes. And you really had this notion of student athletes playing for love of the game, earning an education in exchange for their athletic prowess, and going on to some remarkable stations in professional life in all different sectors. And so my own experience as an athlete provided just a natural desire to be involved with athletics fundraising.
And in the university setting, you were part of a pretty big team in fundraising. What was your role within that? Were you talking with potential donors or?
Well, I was part of small teams and big teams, depending on the institution. And I had the opportunity to work at a 1,200 student small private liberal arts college all the way up to a 70,000 student tier one major research university. And in those teams, I was a frontline fundraiser and I was managing actively donors and prospective donors to the institutions, as I also did in the nonprofit space. But then as my career progressed, I had the opportunity to receive the greatest gift of all, which was leading people and being part of their success and beginning to develop a tree of folks that had worked with me and for me, that I had hired and mentored and had the opportunity to coach. And it's great seeing them go on to great things in their own lives and careers. But I was doing donor management. I was leading teams all around the fundraising wheel, from major and planned giving, annual giving, special events, corporate and foundation relations, advancement services, and fundraising operation, as well as managing presidents and CEOs and boards.
And before you started with branching off into your own consultancy and joining up with Bill, you worked at the Morris Animal Foundation. How was that vertical different from athletics in a way that made you approach things differently, maybe?
It could not have been more different. Morris Animal Foundation, the world's largest and oldest animal health nonprofit, a wonderful organization founded in 1948 and based in Denver. It was a great experience for me. It was the beginning of phase 2 of my career, because I had spent all of those years in higher education doing fundraising, having different experiences, and I began to just yearn and crave for something else. I wanted to more authentically connect donors with a mission, not just an institution. I wanted to work with donors who wanted to give to support transformative movements, Tim, not just because they were an alumnus of the institution and they had kind of an obligatory feeling that they should give back and I was the person, that could facilitate that. I wanted to work with inspired donors who were personally affected by missions and the opportunity to strengthen missions. Now, in terms of the content of Morris Animal Foundation, it's animal health research. And I am not a veterinarian by trade. And about 2 months into my job at Morris, I remember calling my wife saying, I have no idea veterinary science would be this tough to learn and translate to donors. But I had an epiphany, Tim, and that was, it's not about how much knowledge I have about the content of whatever it is the organization's about, Morris Animal Foundation or name an organization. What matters is, am I listening to donors? Am I asking good questions? Am I gaining a sense of the way in which the donor wants to make a difference in the world through their philanthropy? What is the story that the donor wants to live and express through their giving? How does this connect to their broader why, their broader purpose? And is this the organization that would be right for them to do that? And I was just looking for alignment between a donor and an organization. And once I realized that all I had to do was listen, and then keep listening and keep asking questions, and then ask the donor what they wanted to do about it, I got very quickly over the difference between college athletics and animal health.
Yeah. So what then attracted you to the work Bill Crouch was doing with what's now called BrightDot?
I met Bill Crouch in, this is going to sound very seedy, but I met him in the basement of a hotel in Chicago in 2014. We were together at a CASE conference, Council for Advancement and Support of Education. And Bill was, at the time, a senior managing partner at Panis Lindsay, Jerry Panis's firm based in Chicago. I was getting my first firm off the ground. Bill and I had a wonderful conversation just in an exhibit hall about emotional intelligence and it being a concept that many fundraisers today lack because there's not really a path to goodness in fundraising. It was a really interesting conversation that you wouldn't per se expect to have in a trade show of a conference, kind of an elevated conversation. Well, Bill gave me his card and I gave him my card and Bill said, hey, stay in touch and good luck. I went on with the rest of the conference. About 6 months later, I was cleaning out my desk at home and I came across Bill's business card. And I said, oh, we had a great conversation that day. So on a Sunday afternoon, I called Bill out of the blue and I said, "Hey, I'm sure you don't remember me. We met and had a conversation at a conference about 6 months ago." And he stopped me. He said, "Of course I remember you. We talked about emotional intelligence and some of the struggles that separate fundraisers from top performance." And we had the opportunity to catch up. And what we learned was that Bill was yearning to start his own firm. I was yearning to move back east where my family was, which would mean that I might need to kind of divest from the firm I was a part of. Bill and I continued to talk and have conversations, and one thing led to another, and Crouch & Associates was born on September 30th, 2015. But what attracted me to Bill Crouch was this. Here was a gentleman who had spent 45 years in the field of higher education, nonprofit, fundraising, board relations, governance. He knew everybody who was anybody in the higher ed and nonprofit fields. Yet he treated every single person like they mattered, no matter who they were. I remember a story of Bill being in the NASA offices and talking to a janitor and asking the janitor what he did. The janitor said what he did, and Bill said, "You know what? You're doing something else. You're putting a man on the moon," helping the janitor connect to this broader institutional purpose. So when I observed Bill and as I got to know him, the way that he treats people, the out-of-the-box way in which he thinks, the real conviction that we had that, hey, you know what? If we're going to start a firm together, we have got to make sure that it's not just going to be another consulting firm. It's not going to contribute to the noise, the junk, and the confusion that fundraisers feel, that nonprofit leaders feel. We're only going to allow ourselves to form a consulting firm if we truly feel we are saying something different. And so our goal from the very beginning has been that folks are going to hear something, feel something, think something, and do something that they have not done before. And if we ever catch ourselves sliding back from that promise, we will close the doors of this firm.
Wow. So that original vision of being a unique voice in this space, has anything changed since you started BrightDot? Is that still the focus? Kind of how has the business grown and shifted over the years?
The original commitment that we made to each other that folks who we work with will feel, hear, think, and do something that they've not before is what drives us to this day. Unlike many other consulting firms, and I even bristle when I say the word consulting firms because we really don't think of ourselves as that. We're not consultants. We're coaches. Consultants take the watch off of your wrists and tell you what time it is. Coaches help you understand how to tell time. And what coaches do is ask good questions. Consultants declare, they prescribe, they diagnose, they tell, they state. Coaches ask questions and listen to those answers and help someone understand that they had the answers within them all along. It was just a matter of thinking about it differently. And so we are coaches, we're not consultants, and we hold a very high standard to ourselves up in the mirror in terms of always being in the coach mentality. That's a unique identifier of our firm. How can we stay unique? By coaching, by asking questions. The first two people that we hired, Tim, were not fundraisers. They were not former presidents. They were not former major gift folks or anything. The first two people that we hired were developmental psychologists. And we went to the work of research. We founded this firm on the conviction that what separates folks from top performance isn't how much they know. It's how they think and how they learn. It's how they connect their why to the why of an organization, to the why of a donor. It's the soft skills, not the hard skills. Fundraisers struggle because they lack assertiveness, decisiveness, objective judgment, independence, manageability, sociability, pace, and all of the things that contribute to what we call fundraising wisdom, emotional intelligence. And so our developmental psychologists helped us understand how to get folks closer to top performance, whether you're a fundraiser, whether you are an executive director or CEO, whether you are a board member, or whether you happen to work in the back line of an organization. It's about working together better as a team. It's about understanding the mission, developing the culture, and from that, you can begin to execute excellent programs, fundraising strategies, and practice remarkable stewardship.
And the 6 areas of focus I saw on your website of Circle of Consequences, the mission, culture, programs, strategies, fundraising, stewardship. How'd you guys decide upon those 6 areas? And were those 6 areas there from day one?
Yes, they were there since day one, and they have been reaffirmed as we go into dozens and dozens and dozens of clients all around the country of organizations we work with. It's also through lived experience. We've got 13 people at our firm with a combined 300 years of experience. As we talk to potential clients, as we ask questions, as we listen to their pain points, the very first question we ask a potential client is, 3 years from now, if we were to have this discussion, looking back over those 3 years, as it relates to your organization or as it relates to you, what has to have happened over these next 3 years for you to feel like progress was made? And we will listen very intently to those answers. And then we'll say, okay, now what are the obstacles and what are the pain points standing in your way? Why haven't those things been achieved yet? What are the struggles? It's funny, Tim, that most of the time, those struggles that folks identify don't relate to their knowledge of how to raise money. They don't relate to the knowledge of how to write a gift proposal or what an acknowledgement letter should look like, or, how should I do my event better? The struggles that folks give us relate to the 6 things on our circle of consequences. And so we made an analogy. We said, you can't win the game of Trivial Pursuit unless you go all around the game board and collect the 6 pie wedges. Well, you can't achieve top performance as a nonprofit organization unless all of these different things are connected, are working together. And if you take one pie wedge out of that Trivial Pursuit game, you don't win the game. And if you take something away from a nonprofit, there is a interrelated, connected effect on another area of a nonprofit. So for those that aren't familiar, we developed this circle of consequences around 6 key signs of health: mission, culture, program, strategies, fundraising, and stewardship. Many people that we talk to who want us to work with them say something to the effect of, boy, if we could just start raising more money, we'd be able to do this program. We'd be able to get this thing off the ground. And what they don't understand is that program doesn't follow money. Money follows program. And we help these organizations flip it around to say, wait a minute, start doing your program. Even if it's smaller in scale than what you ultimately desire, start doing your program. And when you do it, and when you demonstrate the impact of the work, when you message it well, when you are fulfilling that compelling mission, and when you are strengthening that internal and external culture, through your program and strategy, the money follows. And when the money follows, you have the opportunity to steward the supporters who are making it possible, which strengthens your mission, builds your culture, including your culture of philanthropy, allows you to do your program bigger and better and more, which allows you to bring on additional strategies and tactics and elevate your program design, which allows you to raise more money, do more stewardship, strengthen the mission, the culture, the program, on and on and on. So it really is a circle. And so as we sit down with potential clients, we take them around that circle, we understand what their pain points are, and then we put together customized work plans to attack the areas that they identify as needs.
So when you get your clients up and running, you'll be doing this evaluation. And are you part of as well hiring new staff if you see that there's not enough manpower to meet the goals that they're looking to accomplish?
We do have a talent component to our firm, BrightDot Talent, and we are just in 2019 getting into the search and placement component. At the time of this taping, late February 2019, we've been entrusted to do 10 to 12 searches just in the first couple of months. We're going to just let the quality of our work as it relates to attracting talent speak for itself, and we hope that that's a component of our firm that grows. Unlike other search firms whose business models are built on quantity and not quality, we're all about quality. There's nothing a search firm would want more than for a person that they place to leave 2, 3, 4 years after they start. For the search firm, it represents an opportunity to come back in and do another search. Fundamentally, the model is based on quantity. 90% of every search firm's quote unquote proprietary list is every other search firm's proprietary list. And as a result, these search firms don't know authentically and genuinely the candidates that they're working for. I'm someone who's been working with search firms as a candidate I've had plenty of experience doing that. And I can tell you that I don't have genuine, authentic relationships with search firms that have put me in front of organizations for work. Well, we decided to do something different. One of the first things we did is create the world's first proprietary nonprofit emotional intelligence assessment designed specifically for the nonprofit fundraising community that gives us an idea of someone's thinking and learning styles, emotional tendencies, and passion areas. So there's what you say in an interview, and then there's what you actually assess at in terms of your emotional intelligence, which is hard to talk about, but it's easy to assess if you know how to do it. And we worked with our developmental psychologist to get that done. We're using that as a key part of our search work, as well as developing long-term relationships with those that we feel would be excellent additions and contributors to the fundraising field. And so we won't put anybody in front of a potential client in a search component unless that person is vetted, validated, known, and we feel that we can talk authentically about that person's strengths. And so we feel that that more holistic approach to search will serve us well.
Gotcha. Now, what makes an ideal client for you? They're going to be pretty coachable. Are there any other components that would disqualify you from working with a client?
You hit the nail on the head. First is coachable. We have a vetting process that we go through before we will, as a firm, make a commitment to work with a client. I'm very glad that we're to this point, by the way. We're a 4-year-old firm. And when we started, probably not unlike many other firms who start, we were just amazed that anyone wanted to pay us. We were willing to work for whatever anybody wanted to give us. There wasn't any client that we would say no to because you're trying to get a business off the ground. Well, thankfully, we're able to be selective. We are careful to kind of load balance our roster of clients so that clients get our best service and attention. But they've got to be coachable. In this vetting process, asking many good questions, taking them through the circle, understanding their pain points, we're going to come back and say one of two different things. We'd love to work with you based on what we've learned about you so far, or we honestly don't feel that we are the organization that could best serve you at this particular time based on your needs, but we want to give you a few referrals to organizations that might be much better fits for you.
Gotcha. And what is your role within BrightDot? What's your kind of schedule look like on a regular basis, if there is a regular schedule?
Well, no regular schedule. So developing good habits and processes is a must. I am constantly on our clients' time. That's just the mentality that we have. Our goal is not to make money. Yes, we want to provide good livings for our families, and we want to be comfortable and good community members as well. We have a mandate that everyone at the firm is a charitably minded person, as well as the firm is a charitable firm. But our goal is to impact lives, Tim. My job at the firm as a senior performance mentor and a partner is to steer the business development strategy and the business development effort along with our other partners, making sure that we are always working with interesting clients who are doing inspiring work, who are coachable, and who represent the firm's goals and help us amplify our own goals as a firm. Also to work with these clients and to come in, provide them hopefully with something that they're hearing, thinking, feeling, and doing that's new for them and that breaks them out of the rut and the routine that has led to perpetual struggle over time. I do a lot of working with executive directors, directors of development. I do a lot of work with boards, both individual board members and kind of in a board retreat environment.
This episode is brought to you by us here at MarketSmart and Engagement Fundraising by Greg Warner. In this quick break, I want to remind everyone to go to imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer to download the Engagement Fundraising audiobook for free. This offer is only available to listeners of the podcast. It's our way of saying thank you for listening, and we really hope you enjoy the book. Once again, go to imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer to take advantage of this promotion, available only to listeners of the podcast. Now, back to the episode. And with that, let's get to the lightning round, just a series of quick questions and answers.
Sure.
What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Listen before you speak.
What book would you recommend to those getting started?
Asking by Jerry Panis.
What's your favorite personal productivity habit?
Getting up early in the morning.
What's the best under $100 purchase you've made in the last month or so?
For sure, it would be a few extra chargers for my smartphone and my laptop. I travel so much. I am constantly leaving those things behind in airplane seat pockets, hotel rooms, rental cars, you name it. And so I give Apple a lot of business that way.
Do you have a favorite monthly service or subscription you're signed up for?
I've subscribed to a wine club, like a wine guild. It is totally selfish, just for me. I enjoy the shipments that come every month.
What's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
When I was growing up, I wanted to be a priest.
Tea or coffee?
Tea, but hardly ever tea. I've never tasted coffee in my entire life. I have no idea what it tastes like. I drink tea because when people want to have a meeting at Starbucks, I feel out of place. So I started ordering tea and I really don't like it.
What do clients never ask you that you wish they did?
What inspires you to do this kind of work?
And what's the most common error you see nonprofits make?
Nonprofits don't have an understanding of their why, their purpose. You put a mission statement and a vision statement together, you slap it on your website, you slap it on your collateral material, and you never touch it again. You never refresh it again. But your organization evolves, society evolves, donors evolve, the needs that you're trying to, your enemy is a nonprofit, whatever you're trying to, fix and help, that evolves. And nonprofits don't go back on a periodic basis and measure their mission statements, assess their vision statements, and ask themselves the question, do we have a why that is compelling? And are we changing the way we do things in order to constantly be pursuing that why?
And what charities do you admire or support?
I happen to support my undergraduate alma mater, Mercyhurst University in Erie, Pennsylvania. My mom and dad taught me that giving back to my school is an admirable habit and things that I could do. I've got a heart for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. Our family is mission connected to cystic fibrosis. I'm privileged to serve on the board of the Western Pennsylvania chapter and been to some national volunteer leadership conferences. And that's just not as a consultant. It's just me as a donor and a board member. I've got 4 kids, age 10 and under, who are involved with youth baseball and sports. And we support them at a leadership level. And I serve on the board of that association as well. And our church, faith is important to our family. I serve as an elder at our church, and we are in the middle of a capital campaign now. And that's taking up some time and attention too.
Excellent. And where can people find more information about your services?
It's a confusing web address, so I'm going to say it twice. It's www.thebrightdot.com. So it's thebrightdot and then the period.com.
With that, thank you so much for your time today, Scott, and really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to this episode of How I Built My Fundraising Consultancy, presented by MarketSmart. If you like the show, make sure to review it in Apple Podcasts and pass it along to a colleague. I also wanted to remind everyone to visit imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer to download the Engagement Fundraising audiobook for free. Once again, that's imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer. Thanks for listening.